China's ambassador to the U.S. is hitting back at criticism over, quote, improvements to Hong Kong's electoral system. Ambassador Cui Tiankai said the concerns were completely unnecessary. Cui added, quote, democracy had simply been non-existent in Hong Kong during its 150-plus years of colonial rule and has only been established since its return to China, which has given Hong Kong people democratic rights that they had never enjoyed before. Joining us now is Zhao. He's a professor and executive director at the Center for China-U.S. Cooperation at the University of Denver. Professor Zhao, thanks so much for being with us. First, I want to get your thoughts on Ambassador Cui's position on China's position on Hong Kong's elections.
I think China's position has been very clear. The Hong Kong issue is China's domestic affairs. Any criticism is intervention in the Chinese domestic affairs. The Hong Kong security law is necessary for the Hong Kong's stability. But from outside world, they have difficulties to understand why China wants to impose the law from outside, and also China has an international treaty obligation in 1997 turned over to China from UK to maintain the one country, two systems for at least 50 years. So now the change makes the one country, two systems 2.0 is very different from the original one country, one system. So there are some very big differences on the two sides of China and outside the world, I mean the Western world. So there are a lot of concerns here, but I can understand China's position for the long-term stability of Hong Kong, for maintain economic development, and also for the sovereignty. China's power now is much stronger than used to be. So China is in kind of asserting its own sovereign power over Hong Kong issue.
Cui Tiankai is Beijing's ambassador to Washington. He wrote those comments in the South China Morning Post. So who is the audience that he's targeting?
I think he's targeting mostly on domestic audience, although this is in English language newspapers, because for the Chinese domestic audience, they are now in a very strong position, nationalistic position, to support the Chinese government. So he wants to confirm that. In the meantime, he also tried to tell the international community about China's strong position on this issue. So mostly domestically, but also oriented internationally.
I want to shift gears a second here. U.S. and China officials are due to meet next week in Alaska. There's so much on the agenda: trade, tensions over the South China Sea, climate change. What do you think is most pressing for the officials?
I think each side has their own priorities. For China's side, they want to use this opportunity to figure out long-term strategic collaboration direction between these two countries. That's why they said this is the first high-level meeting. Also, they use a strategic meeting. And from U.S.-China, they want to find out what are the China's position on many issues. They want the China side to know what their concerns on some issues, such as the issue of Hong Kong we talked earlier, and Xinjiang, and South China Sea, and many other issues that in the U.S. Agenda working with China.
China places significant value, premium value, on personal relationships. How would you assess Joe Biden's relationship with President Xi Jinping and how that might translate into U.S.-China relations?
I think that's right. The personal relationship between Joe Biden and Xi Jinping has been very different from Trump to Xi Jinping. And I think President Biden knows China very well, much, much better than his predecessor. And he has a much more realistic understanding of the relationship. And his personal understanding, also personal relationship, has also, I think, important for him to set agenda working on China in the long term. At this time, I think this type of high-level meetings, in fact, Tony Blinken and Jack Sullivan, these two people know China also very well. So this is very different. So I think they could have a very rational conversation with their counterparts in China, although I don't think this conversation will resolve those differences. But at least they could talk to each other. Talking itself, I think at this time, at least at high level, is very important. During the Trump administration, the last several years, the communications at top level, at all levels, stopped. That created a lot of uncertainties, also a lot of misperceptions, misjudgment, and intensified those conflicts. So the meeting at this level and with this type of professionals on both sides, I think is a very good start for this relationship.
Important talks there in Alaska, no doubt. You'll be watching, as will we. Professor Zhao from the University of Denver, thank you for your time.
My pleasure.